We've talked on this show before about land and flipping raw land, how I personally like land investments, although we haven't done a ton of them, Denny and myself in the co-investing club. So we've brought in today Seth Williams. He's the founder of REtipster. He has decades of experience in real estate, including a specialization in land investing and in self-storage. So I'm really excited to hear Seth talk to us today about how he goes about flipping land, and in particular, how he does his due diligence on land parcels, how he researches their value, and makes sure that he's not buying a dud. So, Seth, welcome to the show, and I can't wait to hear all about this.
Hey, Brian. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. So you want me to just kind of dive into, there actually, what you mentioned, there are two separate issues, but they're very closely related. It's the doing your due diligence and research on a piece of land before you buy it to understand what you're getting and make sure there's not some huge problem lurking beneath the surface that's going to blow everything up. But then also understanding, what is this thing objectively worth? Like, what is a value that not just I think it's worth, but like everybody thinks it's worth, so that I can understand what I will be able to sell this thing for in the future if I buy it. And these are both incredibly important things. And they're also both somewhat tricky things. They're things that I think are actually a little bit harder to do for land than it is to do for a house.
It's harder to find
Both,
comps for one thing, right?
yeah, for sure. And yeah, it's both like if we just look at the appraisal side of things with a house, there are very clear ways that you can figure out what a house is worth in a way that like everybody can agree about it. You look at sold comps, you look at the income approach, you look at the cost approach. If you had to rebuild the house, what would it cost to build it back from scratch? If it's generating rent revenue, how much revenue is it making per year, that kind of thing. But with land, you can't do any of that stuff because there's nothing on it to rebuild. So the cost approach is out. And the income approach for generating revenue, most vacant lots don't generate revenue. Unless it's farmland or something like that, it's usually just not something that's going to make sense.
Right.
So your only option is to look at other comps that have sold in the past maybe year or so. And the reason that's tricky is because a lot of times you'll find a vacant lot that is literally one of a kind. Like, I get this all the time in the areas where I look, where I might find a 5 acre parcel of land, and in the surrounding 10 miles or 20 miles even, first of all, either there may not be any other 5 acre parcels of land, or if there are, they're very different. Just because they're 5 acres doesn't mean that the topography is the same. The road access could be different. So finding a true comp sometimes is impossible. And even when you do find them, they're not like exactly apples to apples comparisons. So really the way to do this, and it's imperfect at best, even appraisers will tell you like, yeah, we don't really know how to do this. We can sort of guess around, but it's not, it's an imperfect science. But the way to do this is to find relatively similar properties that have sold in the past year and try to figure out, okay, what have those things sold for on a per acre basis? And then kind of use that to back into the property value that you're looking at. And keeping in mind, land will typically sell at a cheaper price per acre the larger it gets. So if you're looking at like a 30-acre parcel, the per acre sale price on that is almost certainly going to be less than the same property if it was 5 acres. That's just how land works. And really, another way you can do this is to contact realtors in the area. Not just any realtor, though. A realtor who specializes in vacant land and has sold a lot of vacant land, and kind of get their take on it too. You could ask them like, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Realtor, if I wanted to sell this property in the next 30 days, like what would the price have to be for you to be confident that this thing would move? And they would kind of just tell you whatever price that would be. And you can kind of use that as your anchoring point. It doesn't mean you have to assume that's fact, but that's basically just, if you want to fire sale this thing and get it sold really quickly, make sure you're offering well below this amount, because that'll ensure that you have a profit margin built in there. And also realizing if your plan is to like develop the property and make it worth more, it's okay to offer closer to market value, but you better be doing something to make that land worth more by the time you sell it. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of it in terms of valuing land. You want me to talk about the due diligence part of it too?
Yeah. No, let's hear it.
Yeah. So when I say due diligence, again, we're just talking about doing research on the property before you buy it to understand what you're getting. And I've got a blog post on REtipster. It's been pretty popular. It's called a 21-point due diligence checklist for buying vacant land. And the interesting thing is, not all of these things are relevant depending on where the property is. So for example, In a state like Michigan, a really important thing you would want to watch out for is wetlands. Make sure there's no wetlands on the property, because if there are, you basically can't build anything on that land, or at least not in those portions of the land. So if you're looking at a place like Michigan, Wisconsin, Florida, Washington, anywhere on the East Coast, wetlands can be a huge problem. But if you're looking at like Arizona, wetlands is a non-issue. Like they're just not there, period. So you never have to think about it. So you first have to kind of understand in the area where your vacant lot is, like what are the hot button issues you have to watch out for. But other things that can have a huge impact on the property's value is basically anything that's going to get in the way of you developing that property in the future. So say if you're planning to buy a piece of land so you can build a house on it, you got to think, okay, what has to be true for me to build a house here? Does it have electric utilities? Is there water access to it? If it doesn't have access to a municipal sewer system, can I flush the toilet? And if I flush the toilet, where's that water going to go? Can I put a septic tank there? Does it pass a perk test? Because if it doesn't pass a perk test, you can't put a septic tank there, which means you can't build a house there. So you kind of have to reverse engineer it a little bit and just think through what are all the boxes that have to be checked for me to use it for its most valuable purpose. And again, that blog post has about 21 things that covers pretty much, I don't want to say everything, but just about everything that you would want to think through, depending on where your property is located.
Awesome. And we'll definitely link to that episode in the show notes. Though, yeah, no, I mean, land is an interesting blend of art and science where, there are checklists and there is an element of science to it. But like you said, there is some guesswork and it is a little bit of an art as well. And with the smaller lots, you can often score outstanding deals, but it's hard to scale those because the reason you're able to get those good deals is because it's so cheap, right? And if there were a greater potential there for actual dollar returns, more people would be interested in it. Yeah. So and with those lower cost properties, it's harder to work with realtors because they don't want to work with those low cost parcels. So anyway, I love the land niche. It is a niche. I mean, it's not for everybody, but there's a lot of money to be made there for people who are excited about it. So Seth, in 30 seconds or less, how do you help people and how can people connect with you if they want to take you up on that help?
Sure. Well, I help people by taking the most important lessons and discoveries I've come across in the real estate business, and I try to package that in succinct, easy to understand blog posts and videos, and I put them on REtipster.com. And I've been doing this for, since 2012. I don't know how many years that is now. A lot of years, though, feels like.
And, a lot of years, old man.
Yeah, and it's just been a ton of fun. Like I really enjoy the work, and I'm blessed that I get to do this stuff. I truly consider it play, and I get to hear from a lot of people that I've helped over the years. So if you're interested in the land business, the self-storage business, or anything like that, check out REtipster.com, and that's where I can help you.
Well, having known Seth for many, many years, that is why Seth is so good at this stuff and at education in general, is because he does consider it play. He brings that sense of fun and personal expertise to all of his work. So I love that. Seth, thank you so much for joining us today. And guys, if you enjoy these quick, focused conversations that we have, please rate and review the show. It makes a world of difference to us. And on that note, we will catch you next time. Want the cash flow, appreciation, and tax benefits of real estate without becoming a landlord? You've heard of REITs and real estate crowdfunding, but you probably don't know much about 5 other ways to invest passively in real estate. So we put together a free video course for you to show you how to consistently earn 15% plus returns from 5 lesser known hands-off ways to invest in real estate. And even more importantly, we'll keep risk front and center in that whole discussion, because really, what's the point of investing for high returns if you also take on high risk, right? So visit sparkrental.com/free to take our free course. Each video is snackable at 10 to 15 minutes long, and the entire course takes less time than watching a movie. Looking forward to chatting with you from within the course.